This is Dr. Stephen Smith at Collin College in beautiful downtown Frisco, home of the Cowboys, Frisco, Texas. Let's see, the day is August 20th, 2019, and let's see, school is going to start next week, so I am basically doing a lecture. The purpose of this lecture is to demonstrate the downloading and installation of SQL Server software. I'm going to go through this kind of fast. I'm going to send this page out by email, and you should be able to get to this as soon as you're in the class. So this is the instructions for downloading it. Here are the instructions. They tell you to be sure to read the instructions. It's always good if you read them. I'm not going to take a lot of class time on this, so I am going to go through it once in class. So review the hardware. Here is the requirements. It's kind of dry reading, but I suggest you read it anyway. It will not run on a Macintosh. Windows 10 is required for Server 2017. If you have Windows 7, you're going to have to install an older version, i.e. 2012. It tells you that up there. And to begin the process, you're going to go to this URL that I give you right here. And I'm going to go ahead and let me close that. I'm going to go ahead and click on it and go there, take a look at what I see. It says download now. If I go to the download now, it's going to download this guy, this SQL Server 2017. This will be a small file. It's only about 0.5 megabyte, so it's not nearly big enough, but it's an application to download. It's the what they call the downloader. So you got to get this one first, and then when you save it, I'm not going to save it because I've already got it. And you're done. So then you're going to execute that file. When you execute this file, you're going to get this file first and save it someplace. So this is the downloader. I'm giving you the instructions here. I'm just reading them quickly. And then when you execute that file, and so there's my little file right there, this one in the middle. When I execute him, he's going to download something from me. He's going to download the rest of it. So we can install from here, basic or custom. If you're going to install from here, then do basic. But better than that, what we can do is we can download the installation files and we can install them later. So this will be this is my recommendation. Just download this. It's going to select where you want to put it. You may put it on your flash drive, will be fine. It's about 3/4 gigabyte. Well, it is because we're going to choose the Express Advanced 710 megabytes. And then after we've selected where we want to put it, we're going to put, this one's going to put it by default in downloads, but you can change that. So I suggest you do. And you want the Express Advanced 710 megabytes. Then you will click download and pretend like I've done that because I've already, yes, I want to exit. And that's going to download this file, SQL EXPRADV 64. And that's about 3/4 gigabyte, okay? And so much for that. Now, we have everything we need. Basically, we only need that one file, that 3/4 gig file. The other one we're done with. I just keep it around because invariably you'll need to go back and download it again for something, I don't know. When you get done with the installation, you can delete these guys. There's no point in having them laying around on your disk. While we're downloading, we're going to go ahead and retrieve the Server Management Studio and a graphical user interface to the server engine. We will use version 18.2. This isn't like Microsoft Access where the graphical user interface and the server engine are together. So we're going to go to this URL, and when I go there, if I go all the way up to the top and then come down about 1/2 page or so, I find the download link, Download SQL Server Management Studio 18.2. If I click that, it will download it. I'm not going to click it because I've already got it. And we're ready to go. Okay, at this point, you need to stop and you need to restart your computer. So restart your computer and then fast forward, come back here and fast forward to this point. So boom, restart, you've restarted. If you don't, it's gonna make you restart again. And we'll go over here to the install file. The first one we're going to get is this 3/4 gig file, SQL, simple query language or structured query language, I guess, EXP, Express, RADV, Express, EXPR, ADV, Advanced, 64, ENU, okay, whatever it stands for. Double clicking. Yes. The directory is a temporary directory, I believe. I don't think it's going to stay around. So we just say okay. And it's going to put him in the same directory as you see. He puts him right there in the same directory where by default. And if you don't want it there, don't put it someplace else if you want. I mean, heck, it's your computer. I'm going to tell you where you have to put something. It'll take it a minute, 30 seconds or so. It doesn't take it long. And here we are. And we get our first decision screen. The first one we want is the very first option there, new SQL Server standalone installation. Boom. Okay, we're going to have to accept the license terms. Most of the time they suggest you read them, but I'm not going to sit here. You can read them if you want to. I'm not going to. Rule check. Here is where you will get tossed out if you have not restarted your computer. And the last, I don't know, since you did anything else. Windows Firewall is a warning I got. I can probably ignore that one next. Okay, it tells me here what it's going to install, tells me how much disk I'm going to need and all that jazz. Take a look at that. So this is what you will install. And just take the defaults. It's going to install it in a folder of C: program files, Microsoft SQL Server next. And wait, as usual. Okay, the named instance, the default name is SQL Express. If it is not SQL Express, make a note of that. The server directory is program files, SQL Server. Make a note of this directory. That's where your files will be kept. So it's kind of important to maybe be able to know where that is, or at least know, program files, SQL Server, MS SQL 14, and I'm going to say next. Okay. Now, at this point, it depends on what you want to do with. Are you installing this at home? I'm going to talk about this later. You can set the startup type for the server database engine to, I suggest setting the startup type to manual. Now, I'm going to leave this set to automatic, and then I'm going to go back to it later. But if you set this to manual at home, if you are at home, if you are in the lab, leave it set to automatic. This is kind of like your car engine. Do you want your car engine to automatically start when you open the door, or do you leave your car engine running at night in the driveway so that when you come out in the morning, your car's all engines warmed up and the air conditioner's on and the radio's playing for you and all that jazz? No, I don't think so. Why not? Because it uses resources. For that same reason, if you are at home, you will probably set this to manual. That means that when you want to use the database engine, you start it and use it, and then you turn it off again. If you set it to automatic, it automatically starts when you turn the computer on. I'm going to leave this one set to automatic, and I'm going to show you how to change that later. So right now, if you just don't do anything here, everything's fine. The rest of these stay where they are, except only that's the SQL database engine. So that's the big kahuna there. He uses a lot of computer resources. Next. Okay, here, everybody stop and pay attention to me now. Authentication mode. Excuse me. Frog in my throat. Okay, there are two authentication modes: Windows authentication mode and mixed mode, SQL Server authentication and Windows. If you don't do this correctly and set it to mixed mode, you will not be able to log in with a server password. It must be set to mixed mode. Now, I have to set the password for the SQL Server administrator. Okay, I suggest you have I'm not going to tell you what password to use. Tell you what, we will use the password here for school. We will use the password B1UE SKIE. Okay, so notice I have uppercase, lowercase. I guess I should. No, that'll be an uppercase, lowercase, and a number will be a, so we'll use this for our administrative password. Now we can go in and change it. So there's a way, if I'm sitting at the console, then I can get in there. So I'm going to enter this password as the administrative password. Confirm the passwords. So mixed mode, and we will give it this password. The only reason I even worry about that password is I just wanted to tell you, I don't care what you make it. At home, make it anything you want to make it. It's your machine. Okay. And I don't, this is the SQL Server administrators. So this is the user that you are now on Windows. The person who's installing it is always the server administrator. So you own it. Next. Basically there, what did we do there? We specified mixed mode and we gave it a password. And I told you what password to put on it at school. What you do at home is your business. Next. I think we're just about to go. I say accept this. Next. Consent to install Python. Accept to install Python. Next. And here we go. Okay, now we're going to be here for a while. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. No point in me sitting here taking up bandwidth, watching this thing install. So it's going to be here for a while. We're installing, and I'll get back to you when, let's see, I have 9:48 p.m. and I'm pausing. Okay, that was fun. I have 10:04 p.m. So that was about a 20 minute, half hour or so install. And take a look at this guy and check that you have all greens in there. It should be fine. I believe that I saw a recommendation that I restart the computer. I might have to restart later, but I think I can do everything. I think I can finish up everything without it. I think that's a recommended that you restart. I don't think you have to, but it might be a good idea. I'm not going to restart. Let's put it that way. So I'm going to close. And basically we're done with that. Close this one. Okay, so I have now finished installing my SQL Server engine. If I go to my services, now you can find your services. I have mine on my desktop here. I hope I'm recording. Yes, I'm recording. Okay, you find your services over in Windows Administrative Tools. And they're here under services. I recommend that you put this one on your quick start menu. You're going to be using it particularly if you're starting and stopping the database engine. And I'm going to scroll down to SQL, SQL, not server agent, SQL Server, SQL Express. Okay, and that's the database engine. Now, this is the guy that's drinking a lot of our CPU. It's using a lot of our memory, and it's using our battery, and we don't really like it running, just sitting there running if we're not using it. Notice it is set to automatic startup. Now, this was the one that I suggested you set to manual, but I left mine set to automatic. But if you just leave yours set to automatic, or if you want to change it later, you change it right here. You double click. I said double click, and notice that the startup type is automatic. You can set that to manual. Okay. Now the type is manual. Notice it is still running. I set it to manual. Now it's like a car that I start when I want to. So when I double click it, when I don't want it anymore, I say stop. And yes, okay. So stop, and it shuts everything down. And now if I go back and look at it, SQL Server, it's not running. So now it's not drinking my memory. It's not using bandwidth. And this thing is a real. There's an old joke about a database. How much memory and processor power does your database server require? The answer is all of it. It really drinks it. So name of the game is, if you're using your computer for just routine web surfing, whatever, when you're checking your email or stuff, just turn that darn thing off. And then when you're ready to use it, it won't let you, you can't, it's not a big deal. If you try to access the database, it's just going to say, hey, sorry, it's not running. You turn it on, start, and it starts. And now it's running, and it's going to stay running until, I'm not sure whether it comes on when you restart your computer or not. Just whenever you're done with it, when you're done using it for the day, just go in there and double click and say stop. Okay. And that's why I always put my services on the bar at the bottom. Okay. B1UESKIE. Okay, whatever. I think I just okay, the next one thing that we're going to do is I'm going to install the Server Management Studio. And I'm going to go back to, where was I? I'm going to go back to my documents. That's under, for me, it's under Colin 2309, Fall 2019, install files. Okay, SSMS setup, SQL Server Management Studio. He's a pretty good sized puppy, and we're going to double click him. Do I want to allow it to make changes to my device? Yes. Now, where will we put it? Notice where it's going to put it. It's going to put it under Program Files x86. So this guy's going in a little bit of a different place. You can put him under, you can put it any place you want. I just usually take the defaults, and then I'm just going to say install. I don't recall that this takes a whole long time. I think I'll go ahead and pause, just pausing the recording. Okay, that was about a 5-minute install, and it is a restart is required in order to complete the setup. It needs to be restarted, and as I recall, it will go ahead without it. I strongly recommend that you restart. I'm going to go ahead and close, and I'm going to just, I'll restart later. I think setup is complete now. Okay, at this time, we should be up and running. If I go look at your, excuse me, look at your SQL Server, SQL Server Express, it should be running. Okay, SQL Server, SQL Express running. Mine is set to manual, as I think it should be. You can close this. And now we will go to our start menu and come down to Microsoft SQL Server Tools 18. It says that that's new. So you're free to put this any place you, well, basically, SQL Server Management Studio. Now, I recommend you put this someplace where you can get to it because you're going to, this is the main tool that we're going to be using. This is our graphical user interface, and we'll be doing quite a bit of stuff with this. So this is the public face of SQL Server. Sometimes takes it a minute or two. By the way, well, okay, there we go. Pretty good sized, okay. Now, first thing is that we're going to log in, and our authentication is going to be Windows authentication. Now, that means that I'm going to log into SQL Server as the Windows user that installed it. In other words, I'm the owner of Windows. So this is the lowest level of login. I'm going to log in here, and it will not ask me for a password. This means that if I am seated at the console, I can get into SQL Server. So the whole idea of SQL Server is you secure this console, meaning that I can't let anybody use this computer. Ideally, it would be locked in a room with guards and gates and guns and all kinds of stuff. This has to be kept secure because anybody who sits down at this terminal can access your database. It's pretty much true with anything. If I have access to the machine, I can get in. They don't even try to stop you. If I can log into Windows, now I have to be logged into Windows as the user that installed SQL Server. Connect. Once I connect, I am in like Flynn. I'm in. Okay. At this point, we're going to do a couple of things. First thing I want to do is we're going to create some users. I'm going to open this up a little bit. This is my Windows user. So SW_SM, that's my Windows user. Yours will be a little bit different. Okay, first thing I'm going to go to is this security tab. Under the security tab, I have logins. Under the logins, I have several options here. SA is the system administrator. Remember, that's the guy who's got the blue sky password. By the way, if you lose that password or forget it, if you log in as the Windows user, I can go in and I can change that password for the system administrator. So I am the system administrator now because I logged in as the Windows user. I'm going to create another login. I'm going to right-click Logins, New Login. Okay. I'm going to set this one to SQL Server Authentication. Okay. I'm going to make this login name, and whenever I use this one, SW Smith, whenever I use SW Smith, what I'm saying is that's your login name. Your login name does not have to be SW Smith. That's the one I'm using. Now, you can make it SW Smith if you want to. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. But my login is SW because my name is Stephen W. Smith. So SW Smith. Now, your login name might be different. You can use a part of your name. You cannot have any spaces in it. A password, your password must be 8 characters, and it must have an uppercase, it must have a lowercase, it must have a number, and it must have a special character. Actually, it only needs 3 out of 4 of those. So I'm going to give it a valid password. I'm not going to tell you what password to give it. This is your password. Now, if I have access to the box, I can come in here and change it, okay? We're going to click another couple of things here. I'm going to click Enforce Password Policy, yes. I'm going to uncheck Enforce Password Expiration because I don't want it to expire in the middle of the semester. That's kind of a bummer. And then when I get down here, I'm going to say OK. So over here, I see my login. Okay. Now I'm done with that for the moment. I'm going to, so I can push that security down. I'm going to go up one to the Databases tab. And I'm going to right-click Databases at the top, and I'm going to say New Database. Please follow carefully now. Please follow carefully. Okay. I want you to do, I want these names to be correct. If they are not correct, I'm going to make you go back and redo it because if you misname the databases, then when I end up with the, when you hand me a program, if you have misnamed the database and you give me the program to run, I can't run it because I'll have a different named database. So I'm going to name mine this. I want you to name one database AP underscore DB. That stands for Accounts Payable underscore database. Okay, accounts payable. This will be our working database for the class, and you'll hear more about it. You won't hear about him for a few days yet, but we're going to come back there and talk about him. Okay, the owner. The owner is SW Smith. But if you're not SW Smith, then you'll need to put your username. That's the user that you just created over here. Okay, your user. So first initial, last name. I guess I ought to tell everybody to use it. Whenever I say SW Smith, I mean your username. So the owner is me, SW Smith. Make it be your username. The rest of this stuff, you can take a look at it. Let's see, this tells you where the files are going to be. Your database will have 2 files. It's going to be in, the files are kept here because everything on a computer has to be in a file. So it tells you where the primary file and the log file are. This will become important, in a more advanced setting. We're not going to use it very much. The database is named AP underscore DB. The owner is your username. And so I don't say add because that's going to try to add something else to it. Just put it in there and say okay. That was simple. We created the database. I want you to create one more database. New database. This database will be a little bit different. We're going to name this one Scratch, SCRATCH, like scratch paper underscore DB. Now, Scratch database is just a database that we're going to use whenever we want to test something out. We want to create something, but we don't really care whether it stays around forever or not. I don't want to clutter up my accounts payable database with a lot of tables and stuff that I just created, ho-hum. I want to see if that works. So I create a little table and try it. You're going to create that in your Scratch database. By the way, this one also belongs to SW Smith, and I'm going to say OK. So I have two databases. I have AP_DB and I have ScratchDB. All right. Now, one more thing I want you to do. We're done with the databases. By the way, the owners had to be set correctly. Okay. Now, security. We're going to do security, logins, and I want you to go to your user. SW Smith is my user, your user is this. Now, come down here at the very bottom, the default database. Make the default database be ScratchDB. That says that if you just say create something, it's going to get created in the ScratchDB. So that's where you will land when you log in to SQL Server, that your default database will be ScratchDB. Default language is Arabic, US English. Okay, so we'll set our default language to US English. I've never seen that one before. Okay, and we are now ready to go. Okay. Now we are ready to connect. By the way, this is the disconnect and the connect buttons. So connect and disconnect. If I click the X one, I am no longer connected to the database. If I click connect, right? Now, for authentication, I'm now going to go to SQL Server authentication. SQL Server authentication. And it remembered the password. You can remember the password or not. Connect. I am now connected as SW Smith. If I just create something here, it's going to create it in the Scratch database. Questions? Now, why am I asking for questions? I usually have an audience logged in, so I just don't have anybody here. So I guess I would, at this time, we've got one more little thing to do. I want to go to, I guess I've closed my Collin College. Okay, I've got to go get back into, over in, let's see, page 5. The easiest thing to do is just to get it from Collin. I know where I have a copy of it. Okay, there is a file, and it is in Module 2, page 5, and I'll leave it there. And its name is create_AP, create accounts payable .SQL. So this is an SQL file. See if I can copy. I'm going to put that over in my Spring. Let's see. No, it's fall. This is fall, isn't it? Install files. This is an important enough one that I'm going to put it here in my install files. I want to keep this one where I can get to it, because we're going to be using this guy a lot in our program. Now I can go new query. So if yours might not be set up. I'm going to go, open. I'm going to open a file. So file, open, file. And by the way, there it's I think you can do Control-O and it'll get there. Navigate to wherever it was that you saved that. Documents, minus in Collin 2309. Fall 2019, install files, that's where I put mine, and then double click it and it opens up. And if you take a look at it, this is SQL. This is the language we're going to be studying here. So you can scroll through it if you want to. Don't change anything in it. So this is you're going to know what this stuff means by the time we get out of here. We're going to be inserting and creating tables, and we're going to be working with this stuff. Not all of it. Some of the stuff is beyond this class, but for the most part, before you get out of here, you'll be able to read this file. Now, when the first line of any SQL program is choosing the database. So this one is going to use AP_DB. If you didn't name that database correctly, this guy is going to bomb. I mean, he just won't run. So I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to say execute. And about 5 seconds later or so, query executed successfully. And my database now exists. I can close this. And if I were to have a new query, if I were to say use AP_DB, so I always have to say use, and then I would say select everything from vendors. And so this is okay. I don't know why it's giving me that red mark. Let's see what problem is. It doesn't have a problem. So there I see the contents of the vendors table. I don't have any idea why it's giving me that red mark on it. Sometimes it just will. I don't know why it. Mine's doing it. Yours may not be. What you can do, if that really bothers you and it's on, if you right-click it and say IntelliSense enabled, it'll go away. I don't know why that turns it on and off. Sometimes that's showing an error, but if it runs, then it runs fine, then we won't worry about it. Sometimes you just get errors in here, or it marks things as errors that just aren't. And here is where we're going to start talking about SQL. So our server is installed, up and running. Let's see, is there anything else I need to do here? We have a user created. The user, whenever I say SW Smith, I mean you use your user. You have your password. Don't lose your password. But if you do lose your password, you can always get into it by logging in with Windows authentication. If you sit down at a computer and someone else has been using the computer, don't mess with their user. Don't mess with their stuff. You make your own user. And I will talk about how to use the Open Lab. That's a kind of another skill set. We're going to have to create. We're going to have to run that create AP database every time you sit down at the lab in the Open Lab. But it's not a big deal. You can do it in 3 or 4 seconds, and I'll show you how to do that. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and end. Hasn't this been fun? And I will send this out via email. Okay, so I'm going to end the recording now and end the meeting. Good night, all.